Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm the Vegan Nazarite. Well, today I'm continuing with my project to take my Reddit teachings and put them onto video. This is uh, my way of making these teachings a little bit more accessible. But if you'd rather just read them, um, they are available on my Reddit Vegan Nazarite site or the Sackcloth and Ashes Ministry site on Reddit, and you'll be able to read them for yourself. Uh, if you do want to refer to the original article, you can do so as I put the link in uh, the YouTube description video uh, on from the live feed. So here we go. Today's teaching is called Let's Put It to the Test: Symbols, Crosses, and the Star of David. So many religions use symbols, and Christianity mainly uses the cross, and Judaism also uses the Star of David. There's symbolism all over the world, and if you're a fan of Dan Brown's novels, you might you, you'll see that in all of his novels that feature the one of his most famous books, you'll see that symbolism is rampant all over. Symbols for this, symbols for that, symbols of the Priory of Sion, symbols of the Templars, and a lot of the churches and even synagogues have actually adopted some of those symbols. Uh, many ways, we, in many ways, some of the religions basically embed these symbols in their kind of worship. So let's put the symbols to the test of the Torah and see exactly what the Torah says about these things. Again, this is in the same spirit of my favorite verse, which is 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Prove all things, hold fast, which is good. So, and we use the Torah to prove all things, obviously, because there's nothing else that's God's standard to uh, make the distinction between what is sin and what is not sin. So the world is infested with symbols. These come from a variety of places, but if you look at it deep down inside, uh, all those symbols are mostly come from other pagan religions. So should we adopt these in our services? Uh, and I'm thinking more on the Christian side here. Every Christian church that I went to, even the ones that they consider themselves good churches, like the Seventh Day Adventists. Uh, well, all those churches feature one thing front and center, and that's the cross. And on the other hand, the synagogues also use another symbol that's very famous, and that's the Star of David. So, should we use these to identify ourselves as, because many, uh, you go on any Christian video today and they'll blast you with crosses and crucifixes and this and that. And many of the Jewish denominations will also blast you with different versions of the Star of David. So, should we adopt these in our services? Should we put these symbols in our house? And should we uh, use them? Well, let's go to the Torah for our answers. So, if we read the Torah and we understand it properly, as Messianic believers, we're commanded by the Torah to put these away. And I'll bring you to Deuteronomy 12:29, which is part of the Torah, obviously. And I'm just going to read from here. When the Lord thy God shall cut you off from the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedeth them, and dwelleth in their land. Okay, and here's the most important verse here, verse 30. Take heed to thyself that thou shalt not be snared by following them. So, uh, after that which be destroyed before thee, that thou shalt not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so I will do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hateth, he have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and daughters they have burnt into the fire to their gods. What so what thing soever I command you, observe to do it, thou shalt not add thereto nor diminish from it. So, and again we read Deuteronomy 12:32. God commands us just to do what he asks us to do, not to add or not to remove anything else uh, from it. So the Torah actually commands us not to inquire about the practices of other religions. Yah commands us not to add to the Torah nor to diminish from it. So, uh, in all the Torah, and I've read it a few times, I don't remember reading anywhere where God says, hey, you're going to stamp yourself or you're going to tattoo a symbol on you to identify yourself as mine. Uh, Nowhere in the Torah do we read anything like this. And quite on the opposite, Yah reminds us not to adopt any of the practices of the nations around Israel. So my take is pretty simple. Uh, my take is symbols, whether crosses or stars, are a violation of the second command in Exodus chapter 20. Make no graven images. Let's go there now. Got the Tanakh loaded here. So in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, we read the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And then the second command is actually, thou shalt not make unto thee a graven image, nor of any manner of likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down unto them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto the thousandth generation of them that love me and keep my commandments. So, Torah and the second commandment is clear. Don't make anything of the likeness of anything in the air, on the earth, or below the sea. And that includes symbols, crosses, and Star of David. Uh, when we identify with these symbols, whether it's the pact of Christ, again, I know more of these symbols on the Catholic side because I'm ex-Catholic. But all these symbols, Pax of Christ, even the fish symbol that seems to people adopt to identify themselves as a follower of Yeshua. Uh, the Torah is very clear and commands us not to have any of these things in our house. And in actual fact, God promises a curse to them that don't obey the second command up to the fourth generation, but to them that love him and keep his commands, he promises mercy onto the 1,000th generation. So there we have it, folks. That's the two main verses that I can share with you today about these things. So we have Deuteronomy 12:29 up until 12:32. God tells us not to adopt any of the practices of the nations, and we have Exodus 23. I think that's up to 25, which is basically the second command. So if you do, if you don't know where these symbols come from, I did a link in the original article of two of the most famous symbols used in those main denominations, mainly the cross and the Star of David. And I'm going to read a little excerpt of it right now. The first one I'm going to read is an article from the Librarians, which is a blog on Judaism. And this is a blog written by a person called Sharon Cohen. And just by her name, we can tell that she's definitely Jewish. She or he, maybe Sharon in Hebrew, is also a male name. But with a name like Cohen, which actually means priest in Hebrew, so I'm just going to go through the article. This was published 2021. The story of the Star of David. The six-pointed star represents peace and harmony in Buddhism. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. God tells us don't adopt things of pagan faiths. So right off the bat, the author of this article is identifying the Star of David as a symbol of peace and harmony of Buddhism, not of the Torah, not even of Judaism. It's a symbol that represents peace and harmony of Buddhism. I don't think Buddhism is part of the Torah. And again, God teaches us not to learn the ways of the nation. And here's another good one. While alchemists believe it symbolized nature, how did the Star of David acquire its significance in Judaism? So again, we read that the Star of David is also associated with alchemy. Well, alchemy is an ancient, I'll call it a pseudoscience, because I don't think we've figured out a way to transform normal metals into gold, but it's basically the pseudoscience of trying to transform ordinary metals into one of the most valuable metals of the day, of all time, gold. So here are two, as soon as I start reading the article, here's two big, how can I say that? Two big signs not to use those symbols. First of all, it's one of them is magic, which the Torah absolutely tells us that we are not to practice any form of wizardry or sorcery. And the second one is Buddhism, which is a very, very old faith from the Far East, mainly India and China and that part of the world. And again, faiths that are not related to the Torah whatsoever. I'll just keep on reading a little bit about this. The Star of David originated long before it was adopted by the Jewish faith. So there we go. Again, it's a symbol from another faith long before Judaism ever existed. And the Zionist movement. It appeared thousands of years ago in the cultures of the East, cultures that use it today to this day. In the past, what we know today as the Star of David was a popular symbol in pagan traditions. There we go. It says right, the article says that the Star of David is from a pagan religion, as well as a decorative device used in first century churches and even Muslim culture. But how is the Star of David tied to the fate of the Jewish people? In the Hebrew context, the Star of David actually referred to as the Shield of David, a phrase first mentioned in the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, so there we go. It was adopted by the Jewish faith from the Babylonian Talmud. So again, that should be a sharp sign to us. Uh, okay, I'm more of a Karaite flavor, so I don't necessarily put much emphasis on any of the oral traditions, and Talmud being one of them. Uh, so, uh, on some of the other teachings I've done, I've warned people when it comes to traditions, make sure that the Torah is your first choice. Uh, if something goes against the Torah, you better throw it away. That said, I'll continue the article. Uh, Another link to the shield concept is a Jewish legend according to which the emblem decorated the shields of King David's army. What's even more, even Rabbi Akiva chose the Star of David as a symbol of Bar Kokhba's revolt against the Roman Emperor Hadrian. Bar Kokhba, the name means son of the star. The Star of David only became a distinctively Jewish symbol in the mid 14th century when the Holy Roman Emperor Charles the Fourth granted the Jews of Prague the right to carry a flag, and they chose the six-pointed star. From Prague, the use of the Star of David as an official Jewish symbol spread, and so began the movement to find Jewish sources that trace the symbol to the house of David. So all these uh, oral law traditions that seem to uh, identify the Star of David a to the David's army are basically legends. Uh, it only started about six, maybe 700 years ago. So again, the Torah is thousands of years old, and the Star of David being used in Judaism is only six, seven, maybe 800 years old. Um, and we read from the author of the article that because in Prague they started using the Star of David to identify themselves, then and only then they started, we could say, possibly making up links to King David's army uh, to justify it some more. Uh, uh, and then we've got, as usual, many of the rabbis actually argue between themselves. On the other hand, the renowned Kabbalah scholar Gershom Scholem claimed that the Star of David does not originate in any way in Judaism, though he noted the symbol was identified on a Jewish shield from 7th century BCE found in Sidon, as well in 3rd or 4th century CE synagogue decorations. The star was found alongside other symbols that were known not to be of Jewish origin. So again, we find that it was never a Jewish symbol to begin with. And here's the kicker. So where can we find representations of the hexagram, a six-pointed star, in other cultures? And if you go to the article, you'll see a very, very pagan illustration of the Star of David embedded with I think it's Vishnu, the Buddhist god with many arms. The hexagram has been used in India for thousands of years and can be seen and found on ancient temples and in daily use. In Buddhism, it is used as a meditation aid to achieve a sense of peace and harmony. And Hinduism is a symbol of the goddess. Okay, I apologize, this is Hinduism, a symbol of the goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune and material abundance. So this is a symbol about riches and gold. So why would the Jews identify a symbol with a symbol that's basically linked to material riches? One, from this god, not Buddhist, Hinduism, in this Hindu god, which associates fortune and material abundance. Well, makes me wonder, is that who some Jews who identify with this symbol are actually worshiping? God actually commands us not to use any of these, we could say, symbols of the world and pagan religions. And also, not only is it linked to this Hindu god, it's also linked with alchemy, which is also another symbol of material riches, namely trying to transform pseudoscience, trying to transform ordinary materials into gold, a very worthwhile. So they go on in the article explaining the four different symbols, triangles, actually refer to the elements of water, earth, air, and fire. And the article continues, alchemy borrowed the idea from the classical Greek tradition that masculinity symbolizes wisdom, while femininity symbolizes nature. Man is philosophy, and woman is the physical world. In the illustration below, which appears in an 18th century alchemical text, and again, this is 18th century, it's barely 400 years old, shows a man holding a lantern as he follows a woman holding a hexagram, wisdom being a key that reveals the secrets of existence. And they go on to another example of the Star of David, also used in Islam. In Islam, the hexagram is referred to the Seal of Solomon, and it adorns many mosques around the world. So here we have very clear examples from this article of the Star of David belonging to Buddhism and Hinduism, and adopted by those faiths far, far, far before some of the Jews adopted them for their symbols. So again, I'm going to bring you to the article, to Deuteronomy 12:29, Take heed to thyself that thou not be snared by following them. God identifies his people who adopt these pagan practices as a trap, as a way for you to go off the short and narrow road of the Torah. Short, straight and narrow road of the Torah. And God even tells us, after they be destroyed from before thee, and thou shalt inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even I will do likewise. There we have it, folks. To me, this is absolute proof positive that the Star of David should not be in one who honors Yah or El, or we could call him the I Am, the God of Jacob, Abraham, and Isaac. The, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob teaches us not to adopt these things and to stick to the Torah for our worship. So that's pretty much what I have on the Star of David. I'm going to go here to another article. This is from worldatlas.com, Religion, the History of the Christian Cross. And this is an article that was published. I can't see a published date here. If you want to, again, the links are in the original article on Reddit, and you can link to that from the text of the YouTube description. And this article is called The History of the Christian Cross. And it starts with this. Symbols are tools to convey ideas and belief. While symbols are part of our everyday life, some symbols provoke profound human emotions. Two bars perpendicular to each other create one of the most iconic geometrical figures in human history. The cross has been a symbol for centuries, used across cultures in mathematics, architecture, religion, and art. The ancient symbol is specifically associated with Christianity and the crucifixion of Jesus. Although the exact time the cross was made is unknown, the use of the cross predates Christianity. So there we have it. The symbol dates to one of the earliest periods of human history, almost from the Stone Age. Incisions of crosses were found in petroglyphs, drawings, and in the European caves. The cross took many forms before Christianity imagined the symbols. Two commonly seen forms were the Tau cross and the swastika. The swastika first appeared in Eurasia and was adopted by some African and American cultures. The symbol, representing peace and well-being, is a cross with arms that ends at right angles, all facing the same rotary direction. The swastika, a significant symbol in Hinduism. So again, we see the cross linked to the swastika of Hinduism, also appears in ancient Greek religion. Well, where do the pagan religions come from? Well, they come from Greece and Rome, representing Zeus as lightning bolts. So the original crosses, way before Yeshua was even walked on the earth, was identified representing the Greek god Zeus. Paul identifies the gods of Rome and Greece as his main definitions of pagan gods in his epistles. The Tau form, also known as the cross of St. Francis, looks like the Greek letter T. Throughout the mythology of ancient civilizations, the Tau cross has been a recurring symbol. The Tau cross represents both the Roman god Mithras and the Greek god Attis. The symbol also influences astrology, as the Taurus bull astrological sign gets its name from the Tau cross. Okay, So again, we see the Tau cross identified with uh, a Roman god and a Greek god, Mithras and Attis. And here we go with one of the oldest crosses, the Egyptian Ankh. One of the first uses of the cross as a symbol was in ancient Egypt. Well, if you're an Israelite, where did we come from? We got rescued from God in the Exodus to go away from all these pagan traditions. The Ankh or the Crux Asanta looked like a cross with a loop at the top. Sometimes the symbol was embellished, but usually it was a plain gold cross. The Ankh is one of Egypt's oldest symbols. In ancient Egypt, the Ankh symbolized life and was often shown in the hands of the goddess Sekhet. The ancient Egyptians believed people's existence on earth was not their full experience, and after death, they would continue in the afterlife. The Ankh represented life both on earth and in the afterlife. So I guess some Christians must have read some of these uh, definition of Roman Egyptian symbols, uh, meaning the resurrection, and decided, oh well, let's adopt this symbol because that's what it means in the Egyptian faith. Well, again, the Torah tells us not to adopt the ways of the pagan of the nations around us, and I would dare say, especially the ones from Egypt, because God took us away from all these things by sending Moses to remove us from the yoke of bondage of the kings of Egypt. So why would we go back and pollute our worship with the same kind of symbols that God identified the Israelites with a yoke of bondage or slavery? Um, oh, well, there we go. My my theory seems to be right. In the 4th century CE, Coptic Christians in Egypt took the Ankh as an emblem of the Christian cross. The Ankh symbolized Christ's promise of everlasting life to the Coptic Christians. This idea is likely where the idea of the Christian cross as a symbol of faith comes from today. Well, there we have it, folks. The article confirms basically what I just said. Uh, but what does the Torah say? That's what's more important. Torah tells us not to adopt the ways of the nations. Um, and goes on with, you know, the Constantine converting to Christianity and using also the cross as a symbol. During the 4th and 5th century, many churches were constructed. During the 6th century, more artists were painting the crucifixion. Sometimes Christ was painted alone on the cross with two criminals. However, most often, artists painted Mary and Jesus Apostle John on either side of the cross. Modern day crosses. Not all branches of Christianity accepted the cross as a symbol. For example, during the Reformation, the Protestants rejected using the crucifix. Well, they didn't go far enough. They should have rejected the cross as a whole, because all the Protestant churches still use the cross without a symbol of Yeshua to it in pretty much all the churches that I've been in. They saw it as a human invention instead of a sacred symbol. Of course, it's a human invention. It's from a pagan religion. But again, they didn't go far enough. They should have removed all the crosses. Some branches of Christianity, such as Catholicism, believe making the sign of the cross is a way to ward off evil. Well, I looked in the Torah long and hard, and I never found anywhere where God commands us to do a sign of the cross. Not only that, God tells us how he wants to be worshipped from start to finish in the Torah or the first 5 books of Moses. So here's another one. I'm just continuing with the article quickly. The swastika, an alternative form of the cross, was used by the Nazi Party. Throughout history, the cross has been a symbol of the eternal life, well-being, and a source of faith for people. This has both divided populations and brought them together. So I was often wondering why crosses are sometimes, as a Catholic, I would often wonder why crosses are depicted in some of the most evil places, like very Gothic places. They still use crosses. Well, these crosses or these symbols are from uh, the Roman religion, from the Greek religion, and from the Egyptian religion. These are pagan symbols and were way before Yeshua ever walked the earth. So, should we also identify with crosses? Absolutely not. God gives a curse to the ones who hate him by mixing their worship with pagan symbols. Um, it's the only thing I can uh, say here, folks, is when my eyes and ears were open to the Torah and to the commands and to the real worship that Yah commands us, uh, I was really amazed how sometimes a completely different, or we could even say diametrically opposite, 180 degrees in the opposite direction, that some of the practices of the world religion ones, including some practices in Christianity and including some practices in Judaism, from God's simple Torah. Uh, Yah's Torah forbids us to inquire of the other ways of the world. Do not they do as they do, and don't take it from me. Prove all things, make your own research, and make your own decisions. Uh, I could preach till the cows come home, but ultimately, you have to prove it to your own self and prove to your own heart what God's actual ways of worship are. And I was very surprised when I started reading the Torah how some of the ways of the world are completely different than the ways of the Torah. So, that being said, I know this is a very controversial teaching. Uh, I often look for different ways to praise Yah. Just a few days ago, I downloaded from YouTube a bunch of worship songs that were actually from the Psalms, the book of Psalms. So I know they're good. If the lyrics are from the Psalms, they're actually 100% biblical. There should be no false worship in them. And I just saw tons and tons of so-called Christian videos, people with masks of crosses on their faces, crosses everywhere. Well, out of all the videos, I found 3 that I deemed acceptable. One of them had a main video background of a star. basically a close up of a sun, we could say. The other one was a video called "The Names of Yah," which were the Hebrew words, Hebrew names of Elohim. And the other one was a very nice landscape of an oasis. Everyone else had crosses and Star of Davids, even uh, that I personally rejected in my life. Uh, the only religious items that I have two of them. One of them, I have a menorah, a real menorah, the seven-pointed one, not the nine one they use at Hanukkah. And I also have a shofar. Why? Because God commands us to blow the shofar on the Feast of Trumpets and on some other feast days. So, uh, as a Catholic, uh, I used to have a very extensive collections of idols and crosses and statues. And God sent me a prophet to teach me about the second command. And I couldn't understand me thinking I was a great, uh, a good Catholic, I'll just say. I couldn't understand why would uh, God send me a prophet to tell me that uh, of the second commandment. God knows I love him. Huh, yeah, God knew I love him, so he loved me back by sending me someone to teach me about the ways of the Torah. So if your heart is good, even if you're sinning, Yah will send you someone to put you on the right path. And that's what he did to me. So I know this is a controversial teaching because uh, many of the greatest faiths that, that follow Yah, namely Christianity and Judaism, identify with these two symbols. And I'm telling you the exact opposite, that you should not have these symbols. Don't do it for me, do it for yourself, and change God's curse into a blessing to the thousandth generation instead of a curse to the ones who hate him. No, that's a lot to think about. And on that note, uh, such a short teaching today, uh, about two major symbols uh, used by two of the biggest, well, one of the biggest churches in the world and one of the most famous, but a very, very important one. Uh, God commands the Israelites not to mix ourselves with the ways of the world. And when rabbis and priests teach you to use these symbols, you have to ask yourself if those priests or rabbis are actually true to Elohim, because Elohim commands his Israelites to put these things away and to follow the law of Moses and the law of Moses alone. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. My name is Daniel, and I'm the